is Brandy, like the alcohol. I'll be your tour guide today. This is just a quick demo of what I offer during my 3 o'clock UCSD Yoga for Abs class. So please join me. Typically, I spend the class on the floor. Use 2 blocks, maybe a yoga belt, and sometimes a pillow. I recommend you orient yourself so that your toes point towards the screen so that you're not turning your head sideways, straining your neck to see what's going on. I'm going to orient myself sideways so you can see the sideline and profile view of what's going on. With that said, I invite you to come on down to the ground and get comfortable. When you lie down, if your chin is higher than your nose, or if when you swallow, it's uncomfortable or choky in your throat, you probably need a pillow underneath your head. So I recommend using a pillow if it's necessary for you to feel comfortable and breathe comfortably. And then take your feet as wide apart as your mat. Turn your toes in, let your knees lean together. Place your hands low on your tummy. Close your eyes, turn your attention inward, and let your breath come slowly in and out through your nose. Begin to cultivate long, slow, deep belly breaths. With your hands resting on your belly, feel your belly rise and fall. In my Yoga for Abs classes, I always start with a breath awareness exercise, and I use that breath control to help sustain the practice. So beginning today with a deep belly breath, feeling your belly rise and fall, just settle in. Feel your back body begin to spread across the ground. Feel the muscles hang from the bones settle in, and more of your back body, your back waistband, your hips spreading out on the ground. Now shift your focus and your attention and your breath up to your ribs. You might even slide your hands up to your rib cage now. Let your belly remain neutral and passive as you take big rib cage breaths. As you inhale, feel your ribs expand outward. And as you exhale, those ribs tuck in. Now, if you're ticklish, you're going to be really good at this. Imagine as you inhale, your ribs balloon outward. And then as you exhale, it's as if you're getting tickled. You're going to guard against that intrusion and contract, retract, pull your ribs into your body. Again, big expansive inhale. And as you exhale, tuck those ribs in like you're getting tickled. Not only tuck those front ribs in, but also your side ribs all the way up into your armpits. So again, expansive, big chesty breath. And exhale, contract. All right, I'm going to remove my pillow just so you can see my arms a little bit more clearly. I invite you to leave the pillow in place if it makes you more comfortable, if you're still able to breathe comfortably with it. All right, return to a big belly breath, a big rib cage breath. And as you exhale, tuck those ribs in and pull your belly towards your spine. Position your thumbs on your front ribs and your fingertips on your hip bones. Again, big belly, big rib cage breath. And as you exhale, tuck in those front ribs and shorten the distance between your hip bones and your rib cage. Do a slight pelvic thrust tilt, tucking your tail between your legs, so the distance between hip bones and rib cage gets shorter. Again, big inhale. And exhale, contract. Tuck in those front ribs, shorten the distance between hips and ribs. That's our starting position. So zip tie this abdominal region in place. Hip bones and rib cage really short and tight together. Zip tie them. And then extend your arms overhead. So if you were a Hindu goddess, you had an extra set of hands. Imagine an extra set of hands still here, fingertips on your hip bones, thumbs on your ribs. Take your actual people arms overhead. Begin with an inhale. As you exhale, tuck those front ribs in, zip your belly in nice and tight. Pull your arms into socket, push your shoulder blades against the ground, and do not let your ribs poke out as you bring your arms overhead. Thumbs lowering down towards the floor, probably not reaching the floor this afternoon, with this first stretch. Keep on breathing. Each and every exhalation is a chance to zip your abs in nice and tight. Pelvic thrust, shorten the distance between front ribs and hip bones, and inhale, arms back overhead. Now you're going to cross your arms. Hold on to your elbows. I dream of Jeannie style. Get a good grip on those elbows And we'll get a little bit more upper body engagement by doing the following. Shove your elbows wide, as if you were doing this without holding onto your elbows, your arms would slide apart. Shove your elbows wide, but hold on tight with those elbows so they don't actually go anywhere. And feel the muscles in your chest engage a little bit more. Inhale. Exhale. Pelvic thrust tilt. Tuck in your front ribs. Do not let your ribs poke out. Keep your arms pulled into the shoulder joints, your shoulders on the ground as you bring your arms overhead. Keep on breathing. Again, your elbows might not touch the ground. Again, it's much more important to keep your ribs knitted together, drawn in against your body, than it is to put your elbows on the floor. And the only way to get a true, honest stretch here and to actually do something that improves your mobility in the shoulders is to have your front ribs tucked in. And then inhale, arms up and overhead. You're going to recross your arms. Put the other arm on top. Get a grip on those elbows once again. Engage. Shove your elbows wide as you exhale. Tuck in your front ribs. Do a little pelvic thrust tilt. And again, bring arms overhead only so far as you can go without your ribs poking out. And inhale, back up. And release. All right, you're going to bring one knee at a time, both knees into your chest. Give your knees a hug. Rock from side to side. Spread out a little bit more of your backside across the ground. And then come to neutral. Take a brick between your knees and give it a good hard squeeze. Flex your feet flat. Spread your feet apart so your heels are wider than your knees. Toes turn in slightly. You're going to squeeze the brick with your inner thighs. Hands come to your lap, and you're going to straighten your arms, putting your knees directly over your hips. Begin with an inhale. As you exhale, tuck those front ribs in like you're getting tickled. Push your lap against your hands against your lap. Try to cultivate a bit more pelvic thrust tilt and feel a really deep wrinkle develop across your belly. Can you do all of that and relax your face? Keep on breathing. Each and every exhalation is a chance to pull those abs in tighter. Squeeze that brick between your knees. And then release. You're going to put your feet on the ground. Pelvic thrust tilt. So prep with a big inhale. Exhale, tuck those ribs in. Zip up your tight yoga pants. Lift your hips away from the mat and slide the brick underneath your bottom. Now I put that brick in place on its wide width setting, wide across my hips. Now it's not between the cheeks, it's across the cheeks. It's a brick, not a thong. And it's low underneath my hips. And I want that brick shoved down low so that I can cultivate that pelvic thrust tilt, so I can tuck my tail between my thighs. Belly scoops in and hollows. Knees are bent, feet are flat, and this is where a second brick comes in handy. That second brick goes between your knees once again. Knees bent, feet flat. Take your feet a little bit wider than your knees, turn your toes in, and squeeze that brick. Find your front ribs, find your belly, big inhale. As you exhale, tuck those front ribs in. Pelvic thrust, shorten the distance between hip bones and rib cage. Squeeze the brick. Now, what are we doing here with our hips elevated? We're going to add in the element of the Kegel. Kegel is a pelvic floor contraction. It works for males and females. Everybody's got a pelvic floor. And to help describe where exactly the pelvic floor is and help you engage the proper muscles, I'm going to have you reach down and feel for those sit bones. Find the sit bones. With your fingertips touching your sit bones, your butt cheeks are cupped in the palms of your hands. So everything in the palms of your hands is butt cheeks, not Kegel muscles. Everything inside the sit bones is pelvic floor. So everything inside the sit bones is what you want to engage. Everything outside the sit bones, everything you're cupping in the palm of your hands, you want to keep that stuff relaxed. Begin with an inhale. And as you exhale, squeeze the brick. Draw that pelvic floor into your body. Tuck in your front ribs. Shorten the distance between hip bones and rib cage. Get a deep wrinkle across your belly button. And inhale, relax. Again, as you exhale, squeeze the brick. Tuck in your front ribs. Pull that pelvic floor into your body. Now, with your hips elevated on a brick, gravity helps you to pull that pelvic floor into your body. You no longer have the downward pressure of your organs on that pelvic floor because your hips are elevated and gravity is helping to pull those guts back up underneath your ribs. So doing Kegels with your hips elevated is actually a little bit easier than doing it with your hips on the floor. I like to teach it that way. Once again, big inhale. Exhale, tuck those front ribs in, pelvic thrust tilt. Think about shortening the distance between your front hip bones. As you squeeze your knees together, as you pull that pelvic floor in. So far, so good. Go ahead, lift your knees, your feet away from the floor. Bring your knees directly over your hips. Again, with your pelvic thrust, hips tilt happening in your hips. Pelvic floor is going to pull in. Hands come to your lap once again. Flex your feet flat just for fun. Begin with an inhale. And exhale. Activate all of that. Front ribs tuck in. Distance between hip bones and rib cage is shortened. Hip bones draw in towards one another. Pelvic floor pulls in as you crush that brick between your knees. And hands press against lap. Lap presses against hands. And hopefully you've discovered your abs. And then release. All right, you're going to lift your hips up, remove the block. Keep one brick between your knees. Clear the clutter out of the way because we're going to take this into a twist. Flex your feet flat once again. Squeeze the brick. Begin with an inhale. As you exhale, tuck your front ribs in. Draw your hip bones in towards one another. Shorten the distance between hip bones and rib cage. Pelvic thrust, tilt your hips. Pull that pelvic floor in. Squeeze your knees together. All of that all together, all at the same time. That's just the inhale prep. Exhale, engage. And then squeeze the brick between your knees as you take both knees all the way over to the right, all the way down to the ground. Coming into Jathara Parvattanasana, rotated stomach pose. Now in this yoga pose, it's all about engaging your abs to get deeper into the twist. Inhale. And exhale. Pull your tummy and squeeze the brick. Do that pelvic thrust tilt thing. And then turn your chest more towards the ceiling by jamming your right elbow into the ground. Pry your right shoulder blade up. Inch it a little bit wider out to the side. And turn your chest more towards the sky. Inhale. Exhale, prepare nice strong abs. Squeeze the brick. Maybe jam that right elbow into the ground to help you come back to neutral. And we'll do that same twist on the other side. Begin with an inhale. Exhale, engage. Squeeze the brick. Everything engaged. All those cues working together. And over to the other side. Notice my back shoulder lifts off the floor. I can get a little bit more twist to get my shoulders a little bit more level, flat on the ground by activating my abs, tucking in those front ribs, doing that pelvic thrust tilt, pulling in that pelvic floor, squeezing the brick, and then maybe jamming that left elbow into the ground to fidget my shoulders so they lie a little flatter. Maybe one day you end up with your hips stacked one on top of the other and your shoulders flat across the ground and a 90-degree rotation in your spine. And then with an inhale, lift your knees up, maybe jam that left elbow into the ground to help, and come to neutral, and then release. So yoga for abs is all about teaching you to engage your abs using various breathing techniques, body positions, etc., and then going into yoga poses with a different awareness and maybe getting deeper into those yoga poses in a safe way so that you don't injure your back. Yoga is all about the union of opposites. It's a balance of stretching and strengthening. The sun, the moon, the hatha, the effort, the non-effort. So putting it together in a yogic way, we can get deep into these yoga poses without injuring ourselves. It's the balance of opposites. So I do hope you join me on Tuesdays at 3 o'clock. The class is free to everybody. It's hosted by UCSD. So you do have to go to ucsd.recreation.edu and sign the waiver and get the free password by filling out the paperwork there, or not the paperwork, the online form. But I do hope to see you all there. Have a wonderful day, everybody.